Upul's platform.
For democracy to win, we need to fight for it and talk about it in street corners, in parliament, at protest sites, in cafes, universities and workplaces, and on programs like this. Good evening and welcome to a brand new edition of the People's Platform. We hope to continue our multidisciplinary discourse to discuss matters which matter to your life. Our guest tonight is President's Counsel, Mr. Upul Jayasuriya, also a former president of the Bar Association of Sri Lanka. Good evening and welcome to you.
Good evening, Sonali.
Mr. Jayasuriya, usually when a bill is gazetted and placed on the order paper, it is that bill which is challenged during the permissible 2-week period. But when it comes to the online safety bill, where 45 petitions were filed challenging it, we saw a different scenario arise. Speak to us about how problematic this is.
This is totally unprecedented, because once the bill is put on the order paper and then gazetted, we prepare the petitions. I mean, it's not an easy thing. You can't do it in an hour or two, but it requires a lot of effort to be put into it. On the basis of the draft bill that is now presented in the parliament, which is also gazetted. Now, if there is going to be a plethora of amendments that are going to be moved in as whatever the stage, it should be that bill that should be challenged. But how are we going to challenge it? In that case, the simplest modus operandi of bringing these amendments would be to remove or withdraw the bill now that is on the order paper, and then present the new bill, whatever they call it, and give the public the notice of that, so that the public have time, at least the 2-week period will be there for the members of public to challenge it.
Increasingly, we're seeing instances of lawfare, where bills are being brought in which defy or don't look at the best interests of the public. We saw the anti-terrorism bill, we saw the online safety bill, as well as a plethora of other pieces of legislation that are being proposed by the government. How problematic is this, and how dangerous is this as a precedent for democracy and the rule of law?
The other bill that adds on to the list that you just gave is, though it came up by way of a private member bill, the amendment to the local government elections ordinance, allowing the minister concerned, the Minister of Local Government, to allow the local authorities that have now exhausted their life to continue for a year or 2 or 3. Now that again, fortunately, the learned judges of the Supreme Court have gone into it and then totally rejected that, stating that it requires two-thirds majority and also a referendum. So now, is it the need of the hour? What do we need at this moment of time? This country is hard up for dollars. This country is poor. We are beggars of the world. We are going around with a begging bowl, asking from every country and then every multilateral agency and then lending institutions, World Bank, ADB, IMF and everywhere, asking for dollars. The need of the hour is to bring in dollars into this country, not only going and borrowing from different countries, but also make the process much easier to the investors to bring in their dollars and then park in Sri Lanka. But have we done anything on that? Now here the other day I have heard that there is going to be a new bill that is going to be brought in, taking away or rather diminishing or making the BOI to disappear. Now a new bill to come in has to have a lot of new thoughts to go into it. That takes a lot of time. But right at the moment, I think as having spent some time at the BOI at the helm, also for 2.5 years from 2015, what I see that should be done at this moment of time, not bringing this kind of anti-democratic bills, but also make amendments to the existing law that we have. How do you bring the amendments? The most powerful tool in the GCC Act, which is now called the GCC, the Greater Colombo Economic Commission, which is now called the Board of Investments, is the Schedule B.
Right.
Now, the Schedule B, there are certain laws. These laws, now for instance, Inland Revenue Act has fallen by the wayside because there is a new law that has been brought in. That is not in the Schedule B. Then the Exchange Control Act is not there in the Schedule B. The idea of the Schedule B is that the authority that is given to different institutions like the Department of Inland Revenue or the Central Bank, the Exchange Control Department, is vested in the BOI. So you don't have, that is why you call a one-stop shop. So you have to bring in more institutions into this. So any real estate investor has to go through 76 approvals. That takes about 3 to 4 years. So that is why we don't get people coming here to park their dollars and then invest in any project here in this country. So if that be the case, we must bring in the electricity board, we must bring in the local authorities, we must bring in the GSMB. There are so many institutions, forest department, customs is already there, but they are law unto themselves. So unless we make those changes, which can be done, I mean, these are very simple amendments. These are the things that will make the investors attracted to this country. At the moment, sad to say, during the time that I was there, 2.5 years, for a month, we used to cancel more than 10 to 15 projects. These are signed and sealed agreements with the BOI. Why? They couldn't start. They spend money, spend time, and then come and sign agreements with the BOI, and then try their best to get on with their business, but they just can't do it. So you must examine as to where they have gone wrong. You must examine where they couldn't proceed beyond, where did they get blocked, and redress that situation, not bringing this kind of anti-democratic bills.
Speaking of anti-democratic practices, when you were the chairperson of the Board of Investment, it was known as a one-stop shop. However, now we see the manner in which added to this, there's policy instability and regressive legislation that has been that is being brought in continuously, and anti-dissent laws. Creating a conducive environment for investors to come into the country is a key element that has been ignored by the government. Speak to us about how problematic this is, also connecting it with the rule of law.
Apart from the laws that I was just mentioning that should be addressed to, I think the most important thing for investors to look into this country and then be satisfied that their investment will be safe, the most important criteria would be the rule of law. They will never walk into a country without any rule of law. If the laws are there, if the rules are there, if they are not to be adhered to, if they are not to be acted upon by the authorities, by the politicians, by the respective institutions, including the police, and there are so many other commissions, what are they doing? What are they doing? If I have to give you some examples, I can give you enough and more examples. The Bribery Commission. I think it was Mr. Jayasuriya who made a complaint with regard to the Greek bonds in 2011. Today is 2023. Up to this date, they are investigating. Up to this date, 12 years they are investigating. Is there an indictment on the commission? Then look at the situation. Other instances like enforcement of contract. Enforcement of contract. Sri Lanka is the 169th after 185 countries. We are very close to the bottom. Why? The government now is trying to privatize SOEs, not state-owned enterprises, right? And they are inviting people to come. They are laying the red carpet. But the day they come with their money and they put their signature on the dotted line and then bring in the dollars and they park in Sri Lanka, that's the day that they will be treated as pariahs. They will be treated as nothing but pariahs. Why? They will be treated like rogues. Either people will be asking for money from them in the bribes. They will never be allowed to start their investments. There are cases, in such instances, people have gone to courts. Courts have decided in favor of those investors.
Right.
And those orders that are given by the courts, for instance, commercial high courts, are never adhered to, never honored. A country, a treasury, the government that doesn't respect the orders of the government or orders of the court, the apex of the court of the country, the Attorney General's Department, with a drop of a hat, they go and appeal. But who pays for it? I can give you one instance where 8 million rupees was to be paid to a particular contractor. He filed action because he has supplied some heavy equipment. He filed action in the Commercial High Court, and the court decided in his favor for him to be paid that 8 million rupees plus 800,000 rupees for a month until that amount was paid. The Attorney General appealed on that. That went on for nearly 10 years. By that time, that 8 million has snowballed to 236 million. 236 million. They still didn't pay. They waited for another 6 to 7 years. After another 6 to 7 years, they gave the check for 236 million. Then the investor said, thank you very much for the 236 million, but you have delayed the payment for another 6 years, another 130 million has to be paid. That was also paid. Now, whose money is this? Who is accountable to this? Attorney General's Department, the officer who took the decision to appeal with a drop of a hat, is no more there. Either he has been promoted, or he has resigned, or he has moved into another area, or maybe he has become a judge. Right? And they are not responsible. The accountability should be there. If the lawyers are in other countries, lawyers have to take a professional insurance cover. It should not only be private lawyers. It should also be the lawyers in the other institutions. Now, the people like now, when you say talking about the legal profession, now see, there are so many institutions like the banks, private sector institutions. They employ lawyers and then you get them to do all the legal work and then pocket the money, which is in violation of the law. So unless we put these systems into place, unless we, what is the success story of Singapore? The success story of Singapore is rule of law, nothing but. They will not cow down to anybody's pressure, any country's pressure, whether it be it USA or UK or anywhere. Their law will take place, it will be enforced, but not in Sri Lanka.
The legal fraternity has a key role to play in ensuring the upholding of the rule of law, good governance. What is this role, in your opinion?
As you can see, the legal fraternity is always represented by the Bar Association of Sri Lanka, which is now, I think, by next year we are celebrating 50 years. It was established in 1973. But there are certain other groups also, groups of lawyers. Now at the moment there is another group called Lawyers Collective, and they are all doing playing a positive role. As anyone can see, the lawyer fraternity have never asked for anything from the government. We are not asked for promotion, we are not asked for a vehicle license, we are not asked for land. We have been fighting only for the rule of law, the independence of the judiciary. We have been fighting for the rights of the people in and out of court. You think that more than 45 bills that have been challenged in court, any one of the lawyers are getting paid? No. They are playing a public duty. This is a CSR responsibility of the legal fraternity. None of them are being paid. They are burning midnight oil and then drafting with the best of their ability and then filing these papers in court and arguing days and days. Why? We are playing that role because we feel it's our obligation. Now see what is happening, the corruption that is taking place in the field of medical supplies. We have to take these matters up. There have been deals and deals and deals. Not only the politicians, of course there is this main political family that has robbed millions and billions of dollars from this country, but nobody is taking any action about it. But be that as it may, but every day the things are happening. Today you talk of one procurement, then before we forget that another illegal procurement has taken place. Now the supply is a non-existent supply. Monies have been paid, decisions have been made by the highest authority, the ministers, the ministry secretary and so on. But who is responsible? Nobody is. The country goes on. It is unbelievable that this kind of thing is happening in this country, but at this point of time where Sri Lanka is a beggar of the world.
So, Mr. Jayasuriya, there are processes, laws in place with regard to procurement specifically, since you brought up that example. The procedures are in place, the institutional framework is in place. So then where are we going wrong?
Simply because you have the institutional framework. If those institutions if they are not manned by the right kind of people, right? If they have been dictated by the politicians or the people with vested interest, they are no use. They are no use. Now we are talking about so many commissions, but are they performing the duty that is expected of them? How many of them are discharging their duty in keeping with their responsibilities? I mean, it is very sad to say. I mean, the constitutional amendments that have been brought in with regard to the re-establishment of the Constitutional Council, very much welcome. I think we are towards that, but that's not enough. It is not only the appointment should be made by the Constitutional Council, but also There must be a regulated process by the Constitutional Council. They should watch, they should be the watchdog to see whether they are doing the duty that is entrusted to them. If they don't do it, they should have the power and the ability to reprimand them. And if they don't do that, they must have the power and the ability to chase them out. Otherwise, I mean, just imagine a situation if the Bribery Commissions Department, now there recently we heard, over the last 2 years, we heard there more than 50 cases were withdrawn and the accused were discharged, not acquitted, discharged, which means you can file fresh charges. For a simple reason of the warrant of the Bribery Commission has not been signed by 3 commissioners. But how many of those cases have been reframed and then charged again, filed again? I hardly hear any one of them have been, maybe 1 or 2, maybe odd case may have been filed again, but not the majority of them, and nobody has, they have not taken the action. But is that the thing? Now, if they were convinced at some point of time, so there is a prima facie case, we must bring it to the notice of court, file the indictment, and let them go through the court process. That decision can't be reversed by another commission. They can't say, no, they thought so, but we don't think so. No, it can't be. Institutional decision making process must go on with whoever the people that may change from time to time who are sitting in those places. They may change, but those decisions have to be respected.
We also need to discuss the indefinite postponement of elections, which goes against the rule of law.
Indefinite postponement of elections. Well, we have filed a case in the Supreme Court, and that was supported. The lordships, the 3 judges of the Supreme Court made the interim order also, preventing the Treasury Secretary from not spending the money that was allocated by the budget, which is 10 billion rupees. That means the Treasury Secretary was expected to spend that money for the holding of the local government election. That order has been grossly violated, and he has been charged for contempt. The order as to whether the summons should be issued on him or not is yet pending. I am sure it will be delivered one of the days. But why would these officials disrespect this kind of orders? Now, if there was any difficulty in enforcing the order that had been issued by the Supreme Court, he could have come back to the court and then inform court, sorry, we have this problem, take it up in open court. They have not done that also. There is no apparent reason why they are not holding it. Now, having postponed that indefinitely, not that postponed, they have not allowed the election to take place. Now there is a discussion as to whether the presidential election is also going to be held or not. Now they are talking about referendum and all that. Why are people so scared of these elections? I mean, people are not born to rule. People are born for a specific period of time. They will live, they can play a role. Once that is done and finished, they must move on and another set must come. But here in Sri Lanka, one man enters parliament and he will remain in the parliament for 50 years, 40 years. I mean, this is a joke compared with any other country. Sometimes maybe once, maybe twice, maybe thrice, maybe 4 times, maybe 20 years. But 50 years, and they celebrate it also. They celebrate cutting cakes and all that. I have been in parliament for 50 years and all that. They must be chased out. If they don't go, they must be chased out. So, unless you bring in that kind of transparency, that kind of system where the people are willing to give up power, at least they should be made to give up power by law. So, now it's a very serious and a dangerous situation that the elections, people are now coming to live with the idea that this government is failing to hold elections that have to be held at the right time.
I'd like to also connect this conversation to the concept of economic crimes, which was raised in a UN report recently. Now, Sri Lanka saw the enactment of the Anti-Corruption Act, which is a positive measure in controlling, managing corruption, although we anyway have a legal framework to ensure this. However, this hasn't been done. It's also a precondition of the IMF bailout package that we manage Sri Lanka's corruption. How feasible is this, Mr. Jayasuriya?
The feasibility of such an effort depends on the heart of the people who are put in authority in making those decisions and then enforcing those legal statutory provisions that are there in the enactments. Right at the moment, we don't know what the bribery commission is going to be. There is some issue going on. They have not been appointed. So there is no bribery commission in this country. There are no inspector general in this country. And it's a kind of a hiatus situation where everything is in, I don't know, it has come to a grinding halt. The president is also very busy in the international affairs, right? So whom are we going to turn to? I mean, who is going to look at these issues and then take responsibility and then... So if the legal process that is the other statutory provision, if that is to take place, I think first thing would be put people whose credibility is unquestionable. I have not seen that happening for some time in many institutions, but what I say is no reflection on the ladies and gentlemen who are there in the bribery commission, but also in so many other commissions. But they may be coming under pressure. They may be coming under pressure from different quarters. So, which is the sad situation? When politicians appoint such people, they expect those people who are appointed to pay puja to those people who are appointing them. So that is why we have brought in the commission, the Constitutional Council. But there again, the nomination has to be made by the president.
It is not supposed to be the people against the government. The government is not the bad guy. However, in Sri Lanka, we see this antagonistic role where the government is painted as the villain and the people as the poor people who are suffering the wrath of government. And this has happened under successive governments. So, Mr. Jayasuriya, I'd like you to leave our viewers with some sort of hopeful message. What is the way forward?
You're right. This has been happening with successive governments. Why? Because they promise one thing to the people, saying that we will bring the culprits to book and then we will deal with them in the right way within the legal framework, but they don't do it. This was said by Mr. Maithripala Sirisena when he saw the presidency, but he didn't do it. But Gotabaya Rajapaksa, because he didn't catch the rogue, they brought a rogue. Because they didn't, the Sirisena government didn't catch the rogue, they brought a rogue to be in power. So the people also have to take part of the responsibility for bringing a rogue into power. So if we are to, it's a right kind of feeling by the people that they are always disgruntled with the government in power, because that is why people say that from the time of independence, where have we gone? Where we have gone down, we have never gone up. That is why now people are turning this way, that way, and then we don't know which way they will turn finally. But in order to give them hope for the future, I think the only way that we can start is the establishment of rule of law and the democratic institutions, the law enforcement authorities, and also the most important task in this endeavor is the independence of the judiciary. If the independence of the judiciary and the respect and the dignity is not maintained, I am happy to say that right at the moment we have the legal fraternity, we who go to court every day and come out, as you do yourself, are very happy and contented with the present Supreme Court and the Court of Appeal both. We hope the same trend will continue.
Thank you very much, Mr. Upul Jayasuriya, President's Counsel, for joining us on this edition of the program. Philosopher and academic Angela Davis, speaking on the purpose of life, said, "You have to act as if it were possible to radically transform the world, and you have to do it all the time." Thank you for watching us. Good night.